Hi, I'm Neil and thank you very much for joining me today for a review of Nice to Know Animals from Houf Games. In this game, players will be travelling the world, researching and studying animals with the aim of scoring the most points by completing quests, getting the most sponsored flights and competing for set majorities. Nice to Know Animals is for 1 to 6 players, takes 15 minutes per player and is suitable for families as well as casual gamers. Special thanks to Houf Games for the review copy. All thoughts are my own. Please keep in mind that the gameplay, components and art are not yet finalised and changes could be made leading up to the release. My review is based purely on this Kickstarter prototype copy which I have been sent. So let me show you how the game plays and I'll give you some thoughts. This is Nice to Know Animals, set up for 3 players. There is the central map, quest cards, animal and sponsored flight cards, from which we have generated the 3x3 grid of available cards. Players start with 2 quest cards from which they must choose one to aim for by the end of the game. Quest cards are not complicated to aim for and the game includes a handy list of all quests and what cards are needed to complete them. On a player's turn, they have 2 choices only, either to study or to research. Studying allows you to earn RE, which let's call money from now on. You do this by discarding a card from one of the 3 rows, earning 1 money for the top row, 2 for the middle row, and 3 for the bottom row of cards. Cards are then moved down to fill any empty slots and then refilled from the top. With your newly earned money, you can spend it to research an animal. Animals in the top row cost 5 money, middle row 3, and bottom row 1. When researching an animal for the first time, you place your adorable meeple on the continent the animal is from, once again shuffling down cards to fill gaps before refilling. Once your meeple is on a continent, you cannot research an animal that is from a different continent unless you fly there. When taking a new animal card, if there happens to be a sponsored flight in the same row, you can move your animal meeple to the new continent by just paying the cost for the row. If there is no sponsored flights, you have to pay the row cost plus 9. As players collect animals, the largest collection is tracked on 2 charts. Endangered and non-endangered. If a player ever collects 5 endangered animals or 18 non-endangered animals, the game end trigger occurs. However, on the non-endangered charts, there are several points which trigger an invitation phase. The player who hits these milestones collects a certificate, yellow cube worth 2 points, and then places other certificates on the map where there are currently no meeples present. This encourages players to fly to these regions to collect more certificates. When the game end triggers, play stops immediately and we proceed to final scoring. And what a final scoring it is, with players scoring animal cards, sponsored flights, quests, majorities in flight, carnivores, herbivores, most endangered, total certificates. And then we move on to the continent scoring with players competing for majority as well as trying to have at least 2 animals in each continent. This final scoring took me by surprise as it was almost as long as the game itself. It also felt quite fiddly with trying to work out where to place animals that could be from multiple regions or animals that populate all world. This prolonged scoring doesn't sit well alongside the quick and breezy gameplay and I would have preferred a simpler scoring. It also means that players who are able to collect more animals by moving around the map or getting lucky with the way the grid is formed and evolved were at an obvious advantage as they always collected the most certificates and have a larger pool of animals from which to allocate to the 7 continents. The artwork on the cards is really nice and very clear to read. The Nice to Know information is really interesting and I came away from every game with a new piece of knowledge I could wow people with in the future. Keeping with the components, I really like the animal meeples as well as the brilliant player aids. The box is a great size and fits everything well and I always like a magnetic closing lid. I would hope the publisher includes pictures of the game or the cards on the back of the box as it looks a little drab compared to the rest. The map of the world board is a little uninspired and boring looking, but it is functional and doesn't get in the way of the game. The certificate cubes are also boring and could have been nicely screen printed certificates, but once again, they work well and don't get in the way. I was just spoiled a little bit by the lovely meeples and hoped that the rest of the game looked the same. The rulebook is well written and the solo mode is very easy to implement. Getting new players up and running takes very little time, and within a few turns, players will no longer need any hand-holding. Having to gain money on your first turn feels like a slightly wasted opportunity. as I would have preferred a staggered start, with the first player having 1, the second having 2 monies, etc. I understand from the publisher that this was considered but decided against. For me, it's strange that it just forces you to always discard a card on your first turn, which is not very exciting. I haven't yet mentioned the quest cards, which are always good fun to try and achieve. To obtain new quest cards, you need to collect the same animal you collected previously. This is discarded and not included in your totals. Then you obtain 2 new quest cards from which you keep 1. The great thing about the quest cards is they have an easy option and a hard one. The easy options are things like collecting a certain amount from a region or are all herbivores, etc. Whereas the harder ones require a certain animal with a particular trait. The only problem we found with the quest cards was obtaining duplicate animals in the lower player count. Because the deck is so big, which of course is fantastic, we did find it came down to luck if a duplicate animal appeared. The last issue I had with the game was the flight costs. If you get lucky and a sponsored flight is in the row you want to use, then you always grab it. Otherwise, paying 9 on top of the row cost made it very difficult and time consuming to fly anywhere. This became a problem in one of our games when loads of sponsored flights appeared at the beginning and then barely any towards the end of the game. This resulted in 2 of the 3 players getting stuck in regions where, by chance, animals were not appearing. Of course, there will always be the all-world animals which do appear more frequently in the deck, but once again these get snapped up by players when they see them. Although I would not buy nice to know animals for my own collection, I did enjoy my plays and would definitely play it again if someone asked me to. But just maybe with a few house rules such as the starting money, flight costs, and maybe a simpler scoring. My rating is, if you like the look of this game and you've got a group of casual family gamers, this might be worth following on Kickstarter and backing when it goes live. My Board Game Geek rating as it stands at the moment is 6.5 out of 10. Anyway, thank you very much for watching my review. I hope it's been helpful to you, and I will hopefully see you on the next one. Okay, cheers.